Hello and welcome to Transplant's Take on Sport. My name's Lewis Daniels and my guest today is kidney transplant recipient and Transplant Team GB table tennis and badminton player, climber and co-host of the Professional Patients podcast, Ollie Crawley. Ollie chats to me about his lifelong experience of kidney problems, including having a transplant at the age of 8 and his time at school, as well as how he found his passion for sport and how it feels to become a world champion. You'll also find out more about the Professional Patients podcast, a fantastic podcast that Ollie co-hosts. If you're enjoying the podcast, please make sure you press subscribe or follow wherever you normally listen so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to follow the podcast on social media, all the links will be in the show notes. He is one half of the Professional Patients podcast. Ollie Crawley, welcome to Transplant's Take on Sport.
I love that. That's such a better intro than I'm used to. Thank you.
It's good to have you on. As I've said there, you're a podcast host as well, but it's the first of a few crossovers.
Yes.
We'll go through everything from your transplant story, your sports. You're well involved with the transplant games. We'll start on your kidneys transplant story. When did you first find out that you had kidney problems? And from listening to you a bit, how aware were you of it at the time?
Do you want me to start from the beginning? Like right back in the good old days of being pushed out and then 3 weeks later...
Go for it.
Yeah, sorted. All right. Well, my parents first realised when I was 3 weeks old, little potato, me, was just there crying, didn't urinate for 3 weeks. Well, I did, but not as much. And my kidneys burst, basically, which was lovely. And then, very long, boring story cut short. 8 years later, in September 2004, my good old mum went, "Here, catch," lobbed me her kidney, and I had a kidney transplant in September 2004. So here we are in 2021.
That's what
talking
what
about
mums
it.
are for. So your kidneys burst. Did you, as a young child, did you know much about that?
Kinda, not really. So to me, the way I describe it is I don't really know. I don't know any different. I don't know what it's like to be healthy. I know that sounds dramatic. I don't mean it to sound as dramatic as that, but like obviously I've grown up in hostile environment. I've grown up not knowing any different to having renal failure and urological issues and all that kind of stuff. So when I was growing up, it was always explained to me, but it was never a big thing to me because I just kind of assumed, oh, everyone's kidney bursts at 3 weeks old until I was old enough to understand where, no, most people's kidneys don't burst at 3 weeks old. They, in fact, have two kidneys and they just work. Like growing up, it's always explained to me. My parents explained it to me. The doctors and nurses were really good. It was like a near constant, yeah, don't worry, we'll get you fixed up eventually. Just shut up and keep getting on with life. But yeah, all good fun.
Do you know what caused it to burst?
Oh, you're going to make me pronounce something of it. So I'm going to shorten it to PU valves, which is basically the tubing that links the bladder to the kidney was blocked. So the urine coming from the kidney going into the bladder wasn't able to get to the bladder for little old potato me to piss out. It was backtracking back into the kidney, which eventually, understandably, burst like a balloon, like a water balloon, basically. You put too much water in it, they're going to burst. Except it was my kidneys. So yeah.
That doesn't sound nice, and so young as well. And as you said, growing up with kidney failure, not really knowing much different. What was it like to go through school with kidney problems?
Weird. Looking back, it was weird. At the point in time, I remember it. So I remember really from about 6 years old. I don't really remember much before that. I think that's normal for people, to be honest. But for me, I remember from about 6, 7 years old. So growing up with renal failure, I luckily never had to dialyse. I was just on the border at all times of having to dialyse, but the medication I was on kind of kept me going. But for the first 8 years of my life, due to having major renal failure, I didn't have work. I only had really a quarter of a working kidney back then. I was clinically anorexic. I couldn't eat. I wanted to eat, but my body just couldn't deal with eating. So the weirdest part for me was lunch times in school. And like little breaks in primary school and nursery, because everyone else would be having their lunch and I'll be sitting there like, "Oh, that looks nice." Eyeing up everyone's food, being that weird kid eyeing up everyone's food and just not having any food myself, just because I physically couldn't eat. Like, I'd try. I won't go into all the details, but I couldn't keep food in me, let's say. It was like out of The Exorcist, it went everywhere.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I had a feeding tube, which was very visible back in the day. It was a feeding tube that went up my nostrils, one or the other, and attached to my cheek. And that was basically all my meds slash food, which was also my meds, was stuck in through the feeding tube. And then, yeah, so like a lot of school, a lot of my early days in school, especially primary school, I remember quite clearly trying my best to explain something that I understood, but I didn't understand how to explain to others, if that makes sense. Because obviously at that age, you don't really know what a kidney is. Most people don't, which is fair enough. So it was a bit difficult to explain to people, you know, I don't have a working kidney, I can't eat due to my hormone imbalance, and etc. etc. So I would just say, I'm unwell, waiting for surgery. It is what it is. I'm very stubborn, so I know it didn't stop me trying to compete in sports. I probably gave my parents a couple of heart attacks because of that, but I'd be playing football as best I could on the playing fields. I'd be playing pat ball, all the normal good old primary school games you'd play. Played a lot of hockey growing up, and then yeah, had my transplant and lived my second life basically after my transplant.
You've talked about the feeding tube and school time on your
Mm,
podcast. There's an episode on school and careers and all that sort of thing.
yeah.
How did the other kids at the school sort of uh, deal with you and your feeding tube and get accustomed to it?
Um, I was quite lucky. Like in my friendship group, they were very good at looking past the feeding tube and seeing me as a person. And apparently they liked what they saw. They liked my weirdness. So it was all good. But it was very much, yeah, we were kids back then. It was very much like, okay, if a kid doesn't understand something, they might be a bit frightened of it, or they're going to be very interested in it and try and tug at it. So it was pulled out. My feeding tube was pulled out a lot back in the old school days. My mum would get a phone call a lot of like, you need to come into school and stick it back in him kind of thing. My mum back then was a fully qualified trained midwife, so she knew how to do it. Hospital gave her permission to do it. So there were a lot of like lunchtimes for me cut short because I'd have to go to the little medic room and have my feeding tube put back in because someone in football grabbed my feeding tube instead of me and yanked it out kind of thing. So yeah, dealt that with a lot. Um, it came out a lot because it got caught on doors. Like, I don't know if you had it in your primary school, but we had those big old heavy doors. And I remember really clearly they'd slam really quickly behind me.
Yeah.
And like my feeding tube would get caught and it would imagine like your earphones getting caught on a door and you get that annoying tug. That, but you've got a tube being torn out of your nose, which is in your stomach and coming back out.
Oh.
Like, but because I didn't know any different, it wasn't that big a thing. I remember one time I was getting really excited because I was like playing kiss chase with a lass. Good old kiss chase, the good old days with a lass. And she was chasing me and my feeding tube got torn out. And like casually as anything, like, as casual as we're having this chat now, I went to the teacher, was like, oh yeah, I need you to either ring a paramedic or I need you to ring my mum because my feeding tube is currently somewhere back there. And I'm due medication in 5 minutes. And the teacher just freaking out, didn't know what to do, bless her. I was just like, no, don't worry. Like, just make the call. Little 8-year-old me telling a fully grown teacher what to do. It was
That was
overall, it
game
was
over
good.
for your little chasing.
Oh, 100%. Never saw the girl again.
Was the feeding tube in right up until your transplant?
No, so it was. This is going from memory, so I might have some bits wrong, so I apologize. But from memory, it's almost like I should have made notes before I recorded. But no, I'm not organized like you. So from memory, I had it from 3 weeks old to about 6, 7 years old. And then after that, I had what I call milkshakes, which were not milkshakes. They were the grimmest thing you can imagine. They were disgusting. They were like some big, thick, gloopy crap soup thing, basically. And it was horrible. And that would basically be every mealtime plus some. I'd have to drink one of those 500 mils minimum of those through a straw, get them down me. And we stopped having to do the feeding tube because basically my nostrils and my entire throat was just started closing up. Couldn't deal with having the feeding tube in for many different reasons. Like still to this day, my left nostril is a lot more closed up than my right because the feeding tube will always go into my left nostril. Um, so yeah, isn't it? Cool fact for you, because I'm sure you wanted to know that. But yeah, I for 2 years I had what we call milkshakes. I don't know the official term of that, sorry, but I just know they were just to this day one of the just most disgusting things I've had to get in me. Like I did it because the hospital told me to, and they explained it to me that it would keep me as healthy as I could be, and it would make sure I'd be able to have the transplant. So I did it. Didn't want to do it, but I did it. All fun and games.
Those drinks you have rather than going on dialysis or try and avoid dialysis. Like I had it with a low protein diet. I can't remember the names of them again, but there was like a white milkshakey thing and then an orange powdered drink that was horrible.
So they're the modern versions. Are they 40 sip? Something like that?
I've no idea. I've blocked that out.
Yeah, everyone does. Exactly. It's one of those things where every, at least kidney transplant patient, seems to know what you're on about, but we've all blocked it out. We're all psychologically scarred from these things. But yeah, nowadays they're a bit easier. I had some a couple of years ago. They're a bit easier to get down. Like back in the good old days of like 2003, 2004, it was like you just got a cake, but a disgusting cake. Just Mike Tyson just punched it to smithereens, mixed it up a bit, and went, "Here you go, mate." Like, it's not nice.
Just a picture of Mike Tyson punching a cake now.
Yeah, here you go, Ollie. Enjoy, because that's Mike Tyson apparently. But yeah. Oh,
So, at what point were you and your family told that you need the transplant?
I was told from as soon as I could remember that I would need a transplant at some point because I don't know about, but my pre-transplant consisted of hospital basically every other week. I think the max I got to before transplant was once a month for just blood tests, scans, all the normal boring stuff you have as a transplant patient and pre-transplant patient. But my parents were told very quickly that I'd need a transplant. I think it must have been like at 4 weeks old. I was told
Wow.
they were told, sorry, that yeah, your son's going to need a kidney transplant at some point. We just don't know when. We can keep him going for as long as we can. That sounded very dramatic. I didn't mean it to, but like we can keep the kidney going for as long as we can, and then when it looks like he'll need to have either start dialyzing or have a transplant, we'll have another talk. And that talk came in 2004 when I was 8 years old, maybe 2003 when I was 7. Um, I remember that quite clearly. I remember sitting in the consultation room with the surgeon and him explaining to me like, once you've had this, you're going to have a kidney transplant. Once you've had this surgery, you'll be able to eat, and that's all. I don't care. Just tell me that, and I'll do whatever I need. That's fine. Like, give me that kidney. I don't care when. I don't care what I've got to do. Tell me what I have to do. Just give me that kidney.
As you said, your mum donated it to you.
Mm.
Did it all go smoothly from then on, or for the transplant itself, and then going on afterwards?
The kidney transplant itself was as smooth as you can imagine. To be honest, I've had complications more to do with the bladder. With my bladder, which I don't mind gossiping about if you want. But the actual kidney itself, up until 2014, so a solid 10 years, was doing really well. And then I had some complications. No one's fault, but there was a mishap with a nuclear bomb of a antibiotic. Because I was really unwell, they gave me antibiotics. This antibiotic got into my kidney and basically started dissolving the kidney. And since then, I've kind of been on off, on off. Am I in renal failure? Am I not? Feeling a bit rough, feeling absolutely fine. You might need a dialyze, you might not, living that kind of exciting life of what's going to happen next. Don't know, take it a day at a time kind of thing. But yeah, overall, the transplant went unbelievably smoothly, like scarily smoothly, as in had the transplant, came back round. Obviously, things nowadays are very different. Like back then, it was you were considered to be out of hospital quickly if you were out of hospital after a month, before a month. So with me back in 2004, when I had my transplant, it was very much, my God, you're out of hospital after 3 weeks. That's really impressive, kind of thing. For a little 8-year-old prednisolone, chubby, bouncing ball going down the ward, kind of thing. um, but yeah, it went really smoothly. I think the only complication we had was getting my neckline out, and that's because I was really awkward. And I just, you know, when you're out of something and the nurse tells you to do something, but you do the opposite thing. Yeah, I did that a lot.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to. I'm just a bit slow. Well, at least I was back then. I
And
was
at
a bit
8 as
slow.
well.
I was 8, exactly.
So you mentioned the bladder complications you had there, and I've mentioned on the podcast before that I had, by comparison to you, from what I've listened to you in the past, very small bladder complications compared to what you've had. Mine was blocked with blood clots. Do you want to go on and talk a bit about yours?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, do I? I'm glad you asked. Okay. So, like I said, when I was 3 weeks old, my kidneys ruptured. My left kidney ruptured, severely damaging my right. But obviously, in a 3-week-old potato baby thing, that was me, by the way, your bladder's right next to your kidneys. So my bladder was pretty badly damaged, to say the least, at the same time. Not bad enough where it needed surgery, but bad enough where, in short, a lot of the nerves are damaged in my bladder. So and it's quite a weak bladder now. So like, yeah, imagine if the bladder went to the gym to get muscly so you could push out all your urine. Mine doesn't. Hates the gym, never's gone to the gym, and probably necks a pint a day to deal with life. It's not got much muscle to it. It barely has any nerves. It does the job, but because it has to, not because it wants to do its best, kind of thing. So the issue I have with my bladder is when I go to the toilet, there's always about 20 mils left, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a hell of a lot of urine just to be sitting in your bladder throughout the day. And obviously, like we know with anything stagnant water, it becomes disgusting and it becomes a bit grim and it leads to major urine infections, which then in turn lead to good old Ollie being rushed into resus with being septic, really unwell. Okay, he might not make it through the night kind of level, but let's get this sorted. So in 2011, I had what's called a mitrophanol. Don't ask me to spell that. Um, but it's a surgery which basically makes a stoma. It doesn't basically. It makes a stoma. I now have a stoma, which is a channel leading from the outside of my body, which is my belly button. They use my belly button. Got my appendix, turned that bad boy inside out, attached it to my bladder, attached it to my belly button, and now every 3 hours I catheterize after I've peed, just to make sure I get all my urine out. And at night, simply because I'm lazy, I attach what I call a piss bag, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a bag of piss. So yeah, I now catheterize, and I now attach piss bags every night.
So were you still at school when you first had to do that?
I was where would I have been in 2011? I was in high school, yeah. So yeah, I was still going through the old education system back then.
How did you cope with catheterizing at school?
It was a ball ache. I won't lie to you. It was difficult. Do you want yeah, I'll give you the details. I'll give you the juicy goss.
Go on.
So I had the surgery, obviously, and it's major surgery. It was considered up there with my transplant. It was like a solid 8-hour operation. It was one of those things where I had to take huge amounts of time off of school to make sure it worked, which was lovely. So when I came back to school, I was trying to balance normal school life, like just trying to get through exams, trying to get through homework, trying to get through school, whilst at the same time. So I don't know if it's the same with anyone, but with me, I had to basically do a mini course on how to safely self-catheterize, which is as annoying as it sounds. It was very much going to the hospital. Now show me let me see you wash your hands, Ollie. Let me see you catheterize. You've passed the test. I'll see you again next week. And then I'll do it again. And then I'll do it again. whilst I'm doing all this, teaching myself how to catheterize, doing the course, I'm also trying to pass GCSEs, I think it was at that time, and all the other normal good old stuff of education. So it was stressful, to say the least. I think I did well, kind of. Well, I left school with some grades. So, but yeah, it was difficult. I was very lucky with my friendship group and my family that they were extremely understanding. Um, they did their best to support me. Like my mates were very much like and my tutors as well at the time as well. They were brilliant. They were very much like, your health is more important. Like you're no use to us if you can't catheterize and we end up having to call you an ambulance. Learn this first. Make sure you get this sorted. Make sure you're safe and healthy. Come back to school then, or do both and just tell us how we can support you. And they were brilliant. Like no complaints whatsoever from them. They did their best. I did my best, and here I am recording podcasts. So
And if anyone wants to hear more about your experience with catheterization
Hmm.
and all the stuff that goes along with it, then head over to the Professional Patients podcast, and you've done pretty much a full episode on it, haven't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you want to, feel really uncomfortable about a man talking in depth detail about how he catheterizes and the life of a catheterizing patient, and yeah, you want to feel uncomfortable and squirm a bit, 100%. Entire episode dedicated to it.
Let's move on to your sport. So your sporting
Yes.
experiences. What were your experiences with sport before your transplant?
Good. Again, like I said earlier, I because I didn't know what it felt like to feel healthy. I competed as best I could until I would basically have to sit down or I was unwell. I thought that was completely normal. Um, so to put it into context, I used to play a lot of football, a lot of hockey, but a lot for me would be, you know, how long was break? Like half hour? You'd have a half hour match during lunch break kind of thing. I'd maybe be able to play 10 minutes and then it's quite hard to describe how tired you would get in renal failure. Um, but the only way I could describe it, the best way I can describe it is very much I would play for 10 minutes to the best of my abilities and I would be exhausted. Not like, oh, I'm tired, need a nap. But even if you knocked me out, even if Mike Tyson came back after beating a cake, he'd come back, knock me out, I'd still come back round tired. Like, it was exhausting. I did my best. I did basically every sport I was allowed to do. The only sport I wasn't allowed to do was rugby, just because where the kidneys are, it just wasn't safe, and where I had a lot of my surgery growing up, it just wasn't safe. Um, but yeah, I did my best. I enjoyed it. More importantly, that was sport for me, especially before transplant. I did a lot of karate, kickboxing as well. Was my one of the few times where I was able to feel normal. I know that sounds dramatic, but it was very much people wouldn't look at me and see the feeding tube. They would see me with the ball, or especially in cricket and stuff like that. Growing up, I was actually quite good at it. So they wouldn't see the feeding tube. They would see, crap, right, Ollie, he's a left-hander and he's in cricket. Everyone gets to the other side of the field. He's not gonna do a normal smash that ball. He's gonna absolutely shatter it. And it was nice. People would see that side instead of, oh, he's the medically complicated guy with no kidney, or like it was just that they find people finally treat you as a human instead of he's a bit odd, bless him, kind of thing.
I think that's the power of sport. Everyone comes together, and everyone's included. There's a lot of inclusive sport going on at the moment. And I'd class transplant sport in that as well,
Yeah,
along with the disability sport and
yeah,
Paralympics, that sort of thing. You're just seen as a sports person.
yeah. I love it. I love it.
I think after your transplant, how long did it take you to get back to playing sport again?
The minimal amount of time I was allowed. I think I was quoted 6 months.
Same.
Literally, just kidney was absolutely fine. Everything was absolutely fine. It was just simply they wanted the scar. Understandably, it's a big old scar, fully healed. Um, so as soon as I was given the all clear, I went back. All of my mates knew I was having that appointment to be given the all clear. They were going to go to the football fields after school. If I turned up at those football fields after school, after my appointment, sorry, I was going to play. And I rocked up onto those football fields, and it was the first time in my life I was able to play a full 45 minutes without having to have a breather. It was to describe I was happy. I might as well have won the World Cup on that day of playing a full 45 minutes. Like, it was amazing. It was an amazing feeling. I didn't play well, but I was playing for 45 minutes without having to drop out, have a breather. The only reason I needed a breather at one point was because I was just unfit after having major surgery. But it wasn't because I was in renal failure. It wasn't because, I'm about to drop down dead or piss myself kind of thing. It was because I'm just unfit and I've got, a bit of fat to carry around with me at the moment. So let's just slow it down a bit. But a normal reason. It was lovely. Yeah. As basically, to answer your question, as soon as I was allowed, I went straight back to sport. Everything I could find and do, I was doing it.
I was the same. It's a special feeling because you you notice that change in energy level and the alertness that you've got to go and play again. I noticed, especially with cricket, I could bowl more than like I don't know 20 balls before I had to go and
Hmm.
sit down and have a big drink.
Oh, it's a lovely feeling. It's it's hard to describe how good it feels as well to someone who hasn't had it. I haven't managed to describe that feeling yet to someone who hasn't had a transplant, which is why I love competing with other transplant patients and talking to other transplant patients who understand, who will just go, "It's a good feeling, isn't it?" And then we'll just carry on. It is lovely.
Let's go on to competing with other transplant patients now. Table tennis and badminton,
Hmm.
you've shown with medals as proof that you're very good at. When did you first start playing?
Apparently, I'm all right at it, or at least I used to be all right. Yeah, back in the good old days. So, like I said, I had my transplant in 2004, and it was very soon after my transplant. My specialist nurse for me at the time kind of pulled me aside and was like, well, pulled me and my mum aside and was like, "Hey, there's this thing called the Transplant Games. Would you be interested in taking part with the children's team?" And I was a bit like, what the hell is this? Um, and my mum was like, "I mean, yeah, you might as well give it a go. It's free, kind of thing. You can go along with a team, meet some new people. A couple of mates who I grown up with, like as in genuinely growing up with on the ward and stuff like that, were going. They said it's good fun, even if you don't compete. You don't have to compete. You don't have to do anything. But the nurse who told me all about it said maybe give table tennis and badminton a go. It's fun. You don't have to win anything. You can just compete, have fun, see if you like it. And at the end of it, there's a football tournament that we do for a bit of fun, and you can compete in that. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go along. So my first ever transplant games was in 2005 in Loughborough and Leicester. Um, the good old days. Pardon me. And I competed in table tennis, and I remember I'd maybe played table tennis once before in my life, like you have to in PE kind of thing. Likewise with badminton. I competed in table tennis, and I found for whatever reason I was good at it. Like, I don't know why. I still to this day don't know what it is about table tennis and me, but for whatever reason, I was just finding that whenever I hit that ball, it went exactly where I wanted. I was able to hit all the balls back. I was able to put spin on it. I was able to do all the things that I shouldn't be able to do at that point, and I was enjoying it more importantly. And it wound. I found it wound a lot of the other players up who've been playing for a long time and were playing really, taking it really seriously. I was winding them up by enjoying myself, which made it even more enjoyable for me. I'm one of those guys to play against. And badminton I wasn't as good at, um, but I enjoyed it because I felt myself getting better at it each time I'd play a different opponent. I felt myself learning from. I didn't get that shot. Okay, I don't know much about the game, but little 8-year-old me was like, well, why didn't I reach that? I didn't reach it because I didn't run for it, and then I'd run for the shot, and I'd be like, oh, I got it. Okay, so it was like it was a satisfying thing to slowly improve and get better at. Um, so yeah, 2005, first played table tennis. I was good at it. I enjoyed it, and then kind of I found a club. It was a like to school. I found a club, played, took it a bit more seriously. Not very like still just enjoyed it. That was my main thing. It was something I could do most evenings. And then carried on winning medals for a while on just an enjoyment stage. And the same with badminton. To be honest, I did the exact same thing.
Did you train regularly for table tennis and badminton once you found out you enjoyed it and you were quite good?
Um, so the way I describe it was I didn't really train. I did it regularly because I enjoyed it. I didn't take it seriously. I didn't go in going, I want to get good at this so I can destroy all opponents. I went in going, I'd like to play this a bit more because I enjoy it. Um, and I enjoy, especially in table tennis, I adore the speed you can get in table tennis. Like if someone's hitting a 30, 40 mile per hour shot at me, like, okay, cool. You think that's a power shot? That's fine, mate. You're just making me more excited. Careful. Like, I love that. It's fantastic. Yeah, no, I did it more for the enjoyment than the actual like training, getting good at it.
And then you took it to the next level. You were selected to represent Team GB in the World Transplant Games. Would you be able to explain a bit
Yeah.
about what the process is of being selected for Team GB and how it felt to be told that you're going to go and represent them?
I didn't believe him at first. I like a hand on heart. I thought it was a prank. I remember, so it was 2008, 2007, 2008. It was around then. Um, and I was just playing table tennis and I was just playing a bit of badminton. I was competing in table tennis at the British Transplant Games, and I remember someone came over to me and, like, very casually, it wasn't a big thing. After I'd won gold at table tennis that year, came over to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in going abroad and competing?" And I was like, because it was so casual, I was like, "Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be nice. Like, would I be able to compete against other people from different countries?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, you know, it'd be a big thing." And I'd be like, "Yeah, cool, no worries. Yeah, I'd be interested. Sure, why not? What's the worst that can happen?" Kind of thing. Um, didn't hear anything for about a year. Didn't hear. That was in 2007. Didn't hear anything for about a year, and then I think it was about September 2008, maybe a bit earlier than that. I got in from school, and Mum was like, "Oh yeah, there's a letter waiting for you. It's from the Transplant Games Federation." I was like, "Oh, that's a bit odd." Okay, cool. Opened the letter, and there in big old bold writing was Australia, Gold Coast, 2009 World Transplant Games. Dear Mr. Crawley, you will be invited to represent Great Britain in table tennis and another one of your chosen sports. And I was like, read it, and I reread it, and I reread it, and I kept rereading it, trying to see if there was any spelling mistakes. Where's the joke? Who could have written this? What funny guys? Got my hopes up. Handed it to Mum, and she was like, "Ooh, ooh, okay. Well, do you want to do it?" I was like, "Yeah, do I want it? Yes, of course." What a dumb question. Of course. So said yes. Answered like the early days of sending out the emails. Said yes. Got an email back going perfect. This time next month we are going to do a training session for Great Britain. Come along. You're already part of the team now because you've said yes. Come along. Start your fundraising. You need a raise. I think it was about £8,000. Come to the training session. We're going to show you how to properly play table tennis, which hurt a bit because I was like, hang on, no, I've won gold medals. What do you mean properly play table tennis? You're talking to the current, older. What's this? But I'm 13 years old at the time, and everyone's an idiot at 13, and I took that to a new level. I thought I knew it all. I knew nothing. I knew nothing. I was Jon Snow. I knew nothing. Went to the training sesh, got battered. To say I got destroyed is an understatement. I got picked up, thrown over that. I maybe got 2 shots back. And they were like, "Yeah, that's because you don't play properly. Like, take it seriously, get your stance sorted." And it was just, small improvements in the game. And that was my moment of I realized, oh, this is actually a thing. This is an entire thing. I am actually representing Great Britain. I am actually wearing a Great Britain training kit. I'm surrounded by players who I've played against at the British Games, and they were very good, but they are elite. These guys and girls, like, so where the training was, it would be the training for the entire team. So it wasn't just table tennis and badminton. There was the swimming, there was the athletics. I think there was bowls at the time. It was like a big old mix. It used to be over at Loughborough University, so like the famous sporting venue and all that kind of stuff. And that was my wake up call of, oh crap, okay, I probably have to up my game a bit, like, and I did. and I went to Australia in 2009. I think it was the only time, in my memory anyway, I've been stressed to compete in table tennis and badminton. It was the only time I was a bit nervous. Um, and without sounding too big headed, I hope I don't come across as arrogant or cocky, but I destroyed the opponents. And I came out with gold in table tennis. And I came out with silver in badminton because my teammate, uh, to say my teammate is good at badminton is an understatement. I'm good, but he destroyed me. And I was so happy to be destroyed by someone else on the same team as me. So I was like, that's fine. You can win this. You can have the gold for badminton. I've already got my table tennis gold. You have your thing, mate. Don't worry about it. It's all good. But it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I'd happily do it again. Yeah.
How did it feel to be up on the podium with your medals?
I didn't believe it. You're going to hear this a lot, but it was very much like, okay, I've done it. Now what? What do I do now? Because
Got the buzz.
I had the buzz. I was also exhausted because obviously I'm training in Great Britain weather. So, I'm used to training in cold. I'm used to training in the rain and good old rubbish British weather. And then I was in the Gold Coast in Australia, which was probably the nicest weather I've ever been in, let alone competed in. And it was hot. It was so warm. And then on top of that, like, I'm having to up my game playing against, the Chinese international table tennis team. Um, and it was hard work. And I remember standing on the podium just thinking to myself, this is brilliant. I'm extremely happy. But oh my God, I need something to eat and drink soon. That was my main thing. I was just like, I just need a packet of crisps. Just give me something, please. I need a drink. And you can see it in some of the photos. You can see in my face, I'm like, please, let's get this done. Like, I'm very thankful. I've won gold for my country and my nation. Really need a drink and something to eat right now, though.
Oh, it must be a special feeling. I'm hoping I can go to the British Transplant Games next year. It's been cancelled 2 years in a row.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the World Transplant Games would be such an achievement to even go to, and you smashed it. You got gold in the table tennis. Have you been again since?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to, but through a lot of financial reasons, mainly injury, to be honest. I destroyed in 2009, just before I competed. I destroyed all the ligaments and everything you can imagine in my left knee going for a run. Like, I couldn't bend my knee, I couldn't do anything. So it was literally only about 2 weeks ago, I was given the all clear after nearly 10 years to go back to training. Like, full time, you don't have to worry about anything. You can go back to training. So obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I can't properly, but I've been managing to get back to a bit of basic training, back to my running. Found a table tennis club, so I'm going to go back to training for table tennis. Badminton, I'll probably go back to more for a laugh. So yeah, you never know. I might be going to the next World Games. Depends on how much it is and how much I can race. That's
Fingers
it at the end
crossed.
of the day. But yeah, fingers crossed, touch wood, all the normal stuff, yeah.
A sport you've taken up more recently, which I'm interested to find out more about, is indoor bouldering and sport climbing. For those who aren't familiar, would
Yes.
you be able to describe what they are, and is there a difference between the two?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yes, there is, yes. So bouldering is, you climb up a wall with no rope, and it's very technical. It's a lot more technical. You're very much uh, start on the ground, and you're looking up, and you work out how you're going to get to the top of the wall, basically. And you've got different levels of difficulty. And then sport climbing, it's kind of what it is, says in the name. Imagine, like, kind of the size of the Shard, for example. No, it's not that tall. It's nothing that tall. It's a bigger wall, basically. And you wear a rope, and it's still quite technical, but it's a lot more about how stubborn are you, and how much can you not listen to your body when it's screaming in pain, and your arms feel like they're about to fall off, and your chest and torso and abs feel like they're about to fall off. How far up that wall can you get? And it's very good to do with a friend who you have someone that what they call a belayer. So they'll be belaying you, which will be they'd be the person at the bottom making sure that if you fall, you don't fall and hurt yourself. You fall and you land safely. So it's a good builds up trust in
Oh yeah.
friendships quite quickly.
How did you first get into that?
Pure luck. It was one of those weird things where I never like I'd heard of bouldering and I'd heard of climbing, um, but I'd just had some surgery, and I noticed that I got a lot more scars than just my transplant scar through surgeries over the years, but I noticed I was really beginning to pull them. Um, like I was in basically it was most days I was pulling a scar or something, or I was pulling a muscle in my torso, literally sometimes just getting out of bed. So when I had a meeting with my nurse, I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, that's quite common. You need to work your core. You need to get a bit more muscle in your core." Completely understandable. I've got nothing like core muscle. It's just been shredded. It's all over the place in my torso. I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go to the gym and start doing that." And she was like, "Yeah, you can, or um, I myself, as in the nurse was saying, she just started climbing. Like it's safe for you to give it a go. Um, See if you got a bouldering wall near you down in Southampton. I was at university at the time. So I started climbing, and my best mate, just out of the blue, we weren't talking about it. It was like, "Hey, I'm thinking of starting this thing called bouldering. Would you be interested to come with me when you're back in South London?" And it was just one of those things of like, "Oh, actually, I've literally just gone for my first bouldering session. I'll come with you and show you how it's done. You have to do some basic health and safety, how to land safely and stuff like that." And since then, I've been addicted. I can't. It's strange. I never expected myself to be one of those guys who loves climb. I was never a big climber when I was young. I quite liked having my feet firmly on the ground. But then when I did my first climbing session, I was just addicted. I went home thinking about how I was going to finish this climb that I was stuck on. What am I going to work on? And it was probably within 3 months I started realizing I'm not pulling anything now. I've actually got some core strength because obviously when you're climbing, you rely a lot on your core strength,
Yeah.
and it's a good way of working it without having to go to the gym and do your sit ups and your leg lifts and your Russian curls and all that kind of stuff. It's a lush way of just working and enjoying at the same time. Um, and I found I was able to incorporate it with a bit of table tennis as well because you really need some good footwork with it. So I was able to just get a bit more feel of okay, this is where my feet are right now. If I were to go in for a table tennis shot, instead of just throwing yourself all over the place, you actually have to slow down and think. Um, yeah, it was just this strange thing of I didn't expect myself to like it, and I fell in love with it probably within the first 15 minutes of my first training session, and I miss it. That's my main thing I've missed during this lockdown pandemic. Like, but yeah, I'm addicted. I love it. I don't know why. I can't describe why.
Maybe now you can get back to it. For this is going out in a few weeks' time, but for the benefit of the listeners, we're recording this on the 13th of April. So I think is it just outdoor sports that can resume now, or is it indoor as well?
I think bouldering centres open today. Because the thing with bouldering centres is a lot of them are quite big open places. So as long as it's a controlled environment, I think they're being treated like a pub or something like that. So as long as you can safely do the COVID restrictions, they're open. But I was talking to my hospital and they were like, "Yeah, give it 3 weeks." Because I had my second jab yesterday. No, I didn't. I had my second jab on Saturday. Sorry. So they're like, "Give it 3 weeks, and then you can go from there." So I'm counting down. I am. I've got a countdown and a half right now.
It just feel nice to get back to sport. I've been doing a bit of cricket recently, getting back into that again after almost a year off. I've had my
Mm,
first jab. My second one is due. This is really only going to be for the benefit of you by the time this goes out. But my next
yeah.
one is due next Wednesday. But I've been able to stay outside and keep distance, so it's all been good so far.
Oh, it's nice. It is nice to get out. I went into London for the first time on Monday. On Sunday, and it was lovely. I missed it.
I mean, back up to the bouldering and climbing. You mentioned that it's good for your core workout. Do you do any sort of gym work to supplement it?
Yeah, I do. To be honest, it was because of bouldering that I actually started going to the gym. So I'm very much the way I work with my workouts, and just general health and stuff is I need a goal. I need a reason. Um, I'm not one of those guys that can do it just for. I do enjoy working out. I do enjoy going for my run, and stuff like that. But I find I put more oomph into it, if you will, when I have a reason to do it. So I found when I was bouldering, it would be stuff like, oh, I'm just a bit too weak to do that climb. Okay, where am I a bit too weak? Right, it's my arms. My arms are just a bit too weak to do that final pull onto the top. Um, right, what can I do about? Well, okay, there's a gym literally next door to the climbing gym. Go to the gym. So I'd work my arms, and then I realised actually, this feels quite good. This feels all right. Like I'm losing a lot of weight whilst doing this, and I'm getting healthier. And going back to the hospital, my blood levels are getting better. So I'm obviously doing something right here. Carried on, and then like everything, if you do it a lot, it just becomes habit. So I'm very much of like wise with table tennis, where it'd be like, okay, why is my swing horrific? Well, haven't got the strength in my ribs or my hips to get that swing into my power. Right. Guess what? I'm working tomorrow in the gym. I'm working ribs and hips, like, and probably my ass as well, because I haven't got much of one. So it'd be nice to get something onto that. But yeah,
What are your plans going forward, climbing wise, other than just getting back to it now? Have you got any sort of specific uh, hills or rocks you want to do a bit of? Go outside, maybe.
100%. Yeah, that's my main thing. So I was supposed to do a Europe tour, a climbing Europe tour, hit Spain, France, and Portugal. But because I've only ever done indoor climbing, you have to do a well, I'd like to do a bit of a course for outdoor climbing just to make sure. Because the thing with outdoor climbing is, and climbing as a whole is, if you're not a safe climber, it's not just yourself you're putting at risk, you're putting the others around you at risk. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm quite a caring guy. So I want to do my next thing for climbing is I'm going to get signed off so I can do outdoor climbing, any kind of ropes climbing. So then I think me and my mate are thinking of popping out, probably up north, do a bit of climbing up north. There's a lot of good stuff around Sheffield. So pop up there, have a couple of drinks and get climbing. That's my personal plan, and then probably go up a level in climbing as well. Like slowly get back into it, get my strength back, and then go from there really, and get back into table tennis.
Sounds good. I mean, hopefully, we've had this year off, or has it been it's
Yeah,
been more than that now? More than a year off from sport, and
I was gonna
we've said
say,
already, it does feel good to get back and get going again. Aching, but good to
yeah,
get back.
mate. I went for a run, my first run, like last month, and I did 1.5K, and I was, oh my god, I thought I was back into renal failure with how tired I was after that run. I was knackered. I was exhausted. I was like just Darth Vader. Oliver left the house. Darth Vader came back into the house. It was a nightmare, but it was nice to be able to do it again safely as well.
Yeah, that's the main thing at the moment, especially. And another sport you do is transplant safe boxing. You described it as to me. Is that mainly sort of pad and technique work?
Um, so I'm just going to clarify. So boxing as a whole for a kidney transplant patient isn't safe. I'm just going to cover my ass by saying that. I'm sure you'll understand.
Oh yeah.
But with the club that I joined in, so I originally joined as a mix of a mental health thing and just I wanted extra fitness. I just wanted that extra thing that wasn't just going to the gym. I'm very much like when I go to the gym, I like going with someone. Um, I'm one of those kind of guys. Like I'll happily go by myself, but it's just nicer doing things with a mate or with a group of people who have similar minds and similar interests as you. So my mate was doing this boxing club. I went with him, and he had prior medical conditions as well. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll turn up and I'll chat to the guy. I'll chat to the coach, as he was called, and he was amazing. He was so good. He was like, we'll start you with the basics. We'll give you a couple of drills. We'll give you a bit of pad work. And I found that I was actually really good at it because I used to do so much kickboxing back in my, like when I was 6, 7, 8. I think I did kickboxing from when I was 6 years old to about 12, 13 years old. Um, and I found I was really good at it. And he was like, try sparring. Like, let's give it a go. And I was honest. I was like, it's not safe for me to spar. Like, if I get, especially at that level, like It's a big difference between sparring as a kid and sparring as an adult. An
Yeah.
adult 100% will knock your head clean off. Or, he will punch, he won't punch your stomach. He will go through you. Like these guys are strong, and these women are strong as well. That I was sparring with, and I was honest with it. Like sparring partner came in, had one ring. Everyone, the club I went to, I was really nervous. Everyone watches you whilst you're sparring and gives you advice. So it was quite nice, to be honest. But I was honest with him. I was like, I can't take any hits to the stomach. I just can't. Like it's not that like you'll wind me and hurt me and I'm embarrassed. It's I've got a kidney there. If it bursts, you're going to see me probably dying on this mat. I was expecting that to be an issue. He was like, okay, cool. No stomach hits. Easy. Nothing. No stomach hits whatsoever. I'm going to put you up against the really good people, the really good lads and lasses who have been boxing for years. I tell them not to go near your stomach. They are not going anywhere near your stomach. They'll hit you on the chest. They'll hit you on the arms. They hit you on the face and the head. And that's what I did. I didn't take any hits to the stomach. I took hits to the chest and to the head. And I loved it. It was really nice going into a brand new club who instantly, they didn't make a big thing out of it. It sounds bad by saying they didn't care. They did care, but it was very nice of them just going, right, this is Ollie. Don't give, literally all he said was like, this is Ollie. Don't hit him in the stomach. It's medically complicated there. He's had a kidney transplant. Go. That was it. That's all they needed. They didn't care. Straight into it. I thought they'd try slowly. I maybe lasted 30 seconds into the first round. I was on the floor. They didn't care. And I loved it. I was addicted. So I did that for about 3 years. And then the pandemic hit, and I graduated uni, moved back to South London, and here we are. If I can find a club that does the same thing, then 100% I'll go straight back in, because I loved it. It was mostly that camaraderie. I don't know if you've ever done boxing or anything, but
No.
you have this thing in a
Taekwondo.
boxing club where, oh yeah, yeah. So then, yeah, it's I assume you're sparring taekwondo as well, but you get that thing where with the club you're in, yes, you hit each other and you hurt each other, but it's a very much like a mutual respect of, mate, since last week you've improved so much, or you need to work on this. It's not like, yeah, maybe they'll take the mick out of you, they'll have a bit of banter, but at the end of the day, they just want you to improve as well, like you want them to improve. So it's just like a really nice family feeling. Um, who it was a really nice family feeling who, you know, beat the crap out of you and do it for the best of you, do it do it for your greater good kind of thing. Like
And it sounds like there was also a feeling of being one. I don't like using the word normal, but being in there with other people without medical conditions and just being seen as being able to do what they're doing with slight adaptations, but being able to do what they do. And I've got to say, to
yeah,
cover my own back, Taekwondo was it was about 12 or 13 years ago. I didn't have a transplant then.
yeah. Exactly. But a lot of places tend to be, even if you have like wanted to go back into it now, people are very understanding nowadays. They don't care. Like, in a good way, in a nice way. They don't care. They'll do their best to change, and then it's down to you as a transplant recipient to, is this safe enough? Is this not safe enough? Make your own decision. We're in charge of our own health. Like, you know. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. Cover your ass. It's good.
Did you wear any protection over your kidney?
I did. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that. That's quite an important bit. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So my dad made me basically he got some fiberglass, molded the fiberglass to go around my torso and kidney, sewed it into some. I'll tell you what, if you want to see a man look bad in cycling shorts, I've got some pictures. Sewed it into some cycling shorts, and it was like, especially during kickboxing as well. That was the only reason I was able to carry on doing kickboxing. Because with kickboxing, it's a bit harder to say no to getting kicked in the stomach, just because at that age, well, sorry, I'll rephrase that. At that age, it's a bit harder because there's no one who's been doing it for years, so they're not quite good enough to control where they hit, which is why I stopped doing it when I hit 13, because it was just getting a bit too dangerous. Like, I'm getting kicks and they've got the power to do damage, but they're still not accurate enough. So let's stop this. Um, but yeah, when I went to boxing, I wore it just in case, just because it'll be like sod's law. The one time I don't wear it will be the one time I take a hit. So I wore that religiously. Like people would take the mick, but I didn't care. Like, it was nice taking the mick. It was a bit of banter, but it was like I don't care. I'd rather have this bad boy here, and then on top of that, I wore my old. So like with boxing, you get the groin, like you do with cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the old groin protector. But with boxing, I got like quite an expensive one where it would cover the groin and then also cover the bladder and where my kidney was. Thankfully, so I would wear my shield. I called it my shield under that, and then that over it. So I basically had like solid two thick layers of protection between a potential accidental glove going down there and my kidney. So yeah, I was like a rubbish Iron Man. So yeah,
Kidney protection is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, and something that I've been trying to find all sorts of different things to wear, especially for cricket. I did wear a boxing groin guard for a bit, didn't really get on with it. I've been
Mm,
wearing a chest guard. And speaking of shields, as you called it, I recently entered a competition with Hero Key Protection, along with the World Transplant Games Federation, which I think I might have mentioned to you when we had a chat before.
yeah.
And I won. So
Oh, my
Hero Key
man.
Protection are very kindly sending me their new kidney shield to try
Yeah,
out and review, which I really hope is a way for. It is specialist transplanted kidney protector. The guy who set it up is a transplant recipient himself. Um, I don't have a discount code for you like I do with the Neon Cricket stuff. The World Transplant Games, by the time this goes out, may still have one out there. But if you have a look on their Instagram, Hero Key Protection, that's Hero KI Protection, you'll be able to see more on that. And I'll be doing a review on it for them, which will be written down eventually. But if you go over to my Instagram at Lewis_Daniels25 and the Transplant Take on Sport Instagram at Transplant Take on Sport Pod, you should be able to see more of what I think of it and how I get on with it on there. Fingers crossed it all works. I can wear it for cricket because it does look like a game changer, as I've said on Instagram before.
I was to say you got to tell me what that's like.
I'll definitely send you it. If anyone wanted any cricket gear, I know it's not a cricket related podcast, but they also do some gym wear, some general fitness clothing. Neoncricket.co.uk, and if you use the code LewisD25, you'll get 25% off everything. They are running a bit low on stock, and I realise this is going out in about 3 weeks' time, so hopefully they're still in by then. Ollie, we've had some list of questions in for you. I asked out on Instagram,
Oh,
which
now I'm nervous.
don't worry, they're all fine. They're all about you, so they're okay.
Oh, okay.
We asked on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Instagram and Facebook are at Transplants Take on Sport Pod, and Twitter is at TTOS Pod. So if you'd like to get any questions in for future episodes and hear who the guests are before they're on, go over and follow on there. There'll be a post out the day before we record, and you can get in touch, get your questions asked, and you've got a chance to feature on the podcast. So the first one came in from Matt, and he said, if you couldn't play table tennis or badminton again, and I'm going to add bouldering, climbing, boxing into that as well, what sport would you play and why?
Oh no. Oh, that's a horrible thought. Um, what would I do? What would I play instead? I'd probably play a bit of cricket and swimming. Cricket because I don't think people realise how technical cricket can be. Like a lot of people who don't understand cricket watch cricket and go, "Well, you're just throwing a ball and then you hit the ball." Nah, mate, there's so much more to that. Like I played it for
Yeah.
maybe a year. Um, yeah, I'd make sure I was a batsman. To say I'm bad at bowling, mate. Like you play cricket, so you know what it's like. I am horrific. I am a horrific bowler, so I'd probably make sure I'm an outfield player and a batsman. I did enjoy that actually. I enjoyed like calculating where the ball was going to go depending on who was bowling against me. What they doing? They doing fast? They're going to add a bit of spin. I did really enjoy that back in the day. So I'd probably do cricket and swimming. Mate, it's just an excuse to go for a swim, innit? I love swimming. So yeah.
And the second question that came in was from Ruben, your fellow co-host.
Oh, good old Rubes. What a beauty. What a snack. What a man.
And he says, how do you manage keeping your energy levels up and training whilst going through kidney rejection?
Oh, bugger. Yeah, okay. Good question. Yeah, so I had a bit of kidney rejection, a bit being a lot, about 3 years ago now. Um, and me being me was extremely stubborn, like painfully stubborn, um, and carried on training throughout it. And it was simply, I would just change the amount I could do depending how I felt. I took it a day by day. My workouts have always been alternate days, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then I'll take the Saturdays off. And I was just honest to myself. If there were some days where I couldn't do anything, I I can't beat myself up about that. Like, yeah, I feel a bit rubbish. Like you always do. Like if you miss like cricket training, for example, because you feel unwell, you might beat yourself up a bit, or at least I do if I miss stuff. But I got into a good mindset of like, no, I can't do that. This isn't my fault. This is something that isn't my fault. I'm in a bit of rejection because of a miscommunication amongst the doctor. That's no one's fault. I was really unwell. It is what it is. Let's just do what I can. So that's what I did. I took everything day by day and accepted the fact that if I can't do any training, I can't do any training. That's what it is. And when I was training, I was really strict with myself. Normally, if I'm training, I'll push myself as far as I can go, but it would very much be like, okay, I've only managed 10 minutes. Well, that's better than not doing anything today, Ollie. Well done. Pat on the head. Let's carry on going, kind of thing, and let's go home safely. But yeah, it's mostly just listening to yourself, listening to your own body. With me, my kidney, and basically just going, all right, my kidney's actually screaming at me to stop. I should probably listen.
Yeah, spot on. I agree with you. I haven't been through kidney rejection myself, but I'll flip it a bit and talk about energy levels through kidney failure, which as well you'll have been through. And again, I agree with you there. Just manage it, manage
Hmm.
your body. I'm not a medical professional, but manage your own
Yeah.
body, know your limits. And for me, my energy levels originally, my way of keeping them up was a lot of water and a
Hmm.
banana, which I was then told to not eat them. So ask your doctor first. And cereal
Yep.
bars, breakfast biscuits, various brands. And you've said know your body, train to your limits, be strict with yourself. I think if you're part of a club, especially, as long as you've got supportive teammates, coaches, captains, which thankfully I had through cricket,
Hmm.
that can manage your levels and you can talk to them about how much you can and can't do, manage your workload, and it helps. And I managed that well, and the club I'm with,
Yeah.
credit to them, managed it very well as well. And I was able to play cricket. I think it was 8 days before my transplant, not to the same level that I'd like
Bloody
to,
hell.
and with a bit of more resting, less bowling, and fielding in positions that may require less
Yeah.
running. But yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, know your body.
You were still able to play. That's impressive. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks to Matt and Ruben for sending in the questions. And speaking of Ruben, the two of you host a podcast together called the Professional Patients Podcast. For anyone who hasn't listened,
Yes.
how would you describe it?
That's a podcast. Done. No, so it is a podcast run by, like you said, sorry, I'm just repeating you here, me and Ruben. We are two kidney transplant patients who we've both been doing this all our lives. So I won't say Rube's age. I'm not going to talk on his behalf, but I'm 25. I've been doing this for 25 years now. And we found through our own experiences, not through others, that I was the consultants and the nurses are brilliant. Like, at least in my experience, they've been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But growing up, there's always those potentially awkward questions you're not 100% sure. Can you ask your consultant? Can you ask your nurse? And like, stuff like sex and catheterizing and potentially private stuff. Um, I found out all that information through asking other transplant mates. And I found as I was growing older, there were younger transplant patients asking me those questions, and I was giving them the same information that I was told, and then et cetera, et cetera. So we found, well, why don't we do a podcast about this? Why don't we do a podcast on what life is like, what life is actually realistically like as a transplant male? One who catheterizes, one who has dialyzed, being Ruben. Um, 'Cause there's so many misconceptions. There's so many. It's all over the gaff about what people think a transplant is. So we figured, sod it. Let's just actually just talk about our stuff and have a chat. A very relaxed chat. We're just doing mates who know each other very well. Both act like idiots on the podcast, but we get the information across. So yeah, if you want to know what it's really like to have a transplant, the downs and the ups and all the good stuff in between, give it a listen. It's good fun.
It's a brilliant listen, and the camaraderie between the two of you works really well. Good dynamic, and I think your attitudes on it are spot on. The way it's very,
Oh, thank
very
you.
calm, very casual. So yeah, please go and listen. Where can people find it?
Oh, that's a point. That's a good question. Rubes normally does this bit. Uh, now, you can find The Professional Patients on Spotify. You can find us on Apple, at The Professional Patients on Instagram. Our DMs are always open, not like that. But like if you're a new transplant patient, if you're waiting to have a transplant, if you've got any potential questions, we're very aware it's two guys doing it, so we do have some female transplant guests coming up, just so we can get obviously not all transplant patients are male. There's a lot of females out there who will also have their own questions and their own worries that maybe they don't feel like they can ask their doctors, nurses, or their parents or whatever. So, give us a question. Give us, if you want to reach out to us, go for it. If we can't answer, I can guarantee I'll know someone who can, who will happy help. We're basically open, ready. Give us a shout. We got you. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And have a listen. Have a laugh as well. You might learn something.
And what are your goals for the future with it? Where do you want to take it?
Personally, as far as it can go. Like, we really enjoy doing it, to be honest. We're not like, if we make some money from it, we make some money for it. But overall, we just want Rubes as well. But I don't like talking on his behalf. But we just want people to understand what it's actually like to have a transplant. I personally get really wound up by transplants on TV. I've never seen a realistic transplant on TV. I'm sorry, a transplant does not fix you. There are still complications after it. You still have to take medication. You still have to have hospital appointments. You still got to look after yourself. It's not a miracle cure. And you probably will have more than one transplant in your life. It sucks, but there's a lot of good that comes with it. So we do make sure that each episode, like, we try and balance that out. Like, there's a lot of crap that comes with it, but we balance it out. And in the long term, more guests, more episodes. We've got a couple of things planned that I can't tell you about just yet, but we've got more things than just the podcast planned. Yeah, we've got some exciting stuff planned, to be honest. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a laugh. It's going to be great.
Sounds exciting, and I'm glad you said what you've said there, not being this miracle cure and how it might be inaccurate on TV. I personally haven't seen any on TV. But yeah, a common misconception I would say is that once we've had a transplant, we're cured. In reality, we're not. We're going through it constantly,
No.
living with this every day to make sure that transplant keeps working. There's tablets, making smart choices for your lifestyle, attending your appointments, having your bloods done, understanding your body. And yeah, people
Yeah.
like the age we are, I'm 22, you've said you're 25, probably will need another transplant at some point.
Yeah. I've been told I'll probably need another transplant within the next 5 years. So I'm slowly getting ready for that. All good fun.
Ollie, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and everyone, please go and check out the Professional Patients podcast. It is really good to listen to, and I think people will learn a lot from your attitude on transplants today. The way you're quite relaxed about it, but you do take it seriously as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. A compliment. Yay. Yeah, we like to be relaxed about it. I don't see the point in. Okay, so can I add one final time? Oh, we got time.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, we like to with the podcast. If you're a transplant patient, well, yeah, such as yourself, you know full well what it's like to sit in that, through no fault of their own, that hospital consultant room, and how serious the chats can be. You don't want to listen to a podcast of two guys having a serious chat about that. No, you want to come join us, have a cup of tea or a beer with us, and join and listen. It's nice, it's relaxing, it's chilled, like yours. This has been lovely. Thank you for
Oh, thank you.
putting up with me. By the way, it's been lovely.
We'll finish on one more question before we go, and it's the one I ask everyone who comes on. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone facing a transplant?
As in, they're about to have a transplant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Don't. Although you might want to, although you might feel absolutely horrific, don't push your mates and family away. Like, do your best just to be open and honest with them. If you're feeling horrible, tell them. Don't keep them guessing. And if you're a mate or family member who is doing their best to support someone who's getting ready to have a transplant or just had their transplant or going through a rough period with their transplant, be yourself. Don't start treating them differently. Don't start magically treating them like a princess or a king or a prince or whatever. If you take the piss out of them, normally carry on taking the piss out of them unless they say otherwise. Like if they're having a rough day, maybe they don't want that. But just because we've had a transplant or just because we're waiting for a transplant doesn't mean we should be treated any different. Like if I crack a joke and it's out of order, I want someone to tell me that I've cracked a joke and it's out of order. Don't start looking at me going, "Oh, he's had a transplant, we'll let him have it." No, tell me. And it's the same with everyone else. We just want to be treated the same as everyone else. We've just got some extra complications we need to worry about that others might not have. We're still human at the end of the day. So yeah, be open, be honest, look after yourself, and especially like mental health plummets around transplant, going up to a transplant, talk about it, be open. If you need help, don't be embarrassed to turn around and get that help. It's just as important to look after your mental health as physical health with a transplant.
I think you're spot on there. Great advice. I completely agree with you. Ollie, thanks again for coming on. It's been great to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you.
No worries. And listeners, if you're enjoying the podcast, please make sure you go and subscribe, follow wherever you normally listen, whether that's Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, Deezer, Acast, or even my website. It's on there as well. And if you're not enjoying it, why not tell your friends who did anyway? Because we'll take them. They can come on and have a listen. They might enjoy it if you didn't. I'm going to be cheeky again here. I've never asked it before, but as we're starting to get out of these restrictions and we're coming towards the summer months, you might get to see your family more closely again. If there's somebody who's got a phone, a tablet, any sort of device where you can get a podcast app, but they don't know what a podcast is, why not get their phone when they're not looking, download a podcast app, go onto there, search for Transplant Take on Sport, click subscribe, click follow. That'll get the downloads up and get more listens in. And if you're feeling really cheeky, really crazy, just press 5 stars on the review and that'll help it push it up and more people can discover us on Apple Podcasts.
I love that. No, that's good. It's not cheeky. It's worth a what? It's worth a listen. Your podcast is brilliant. It's really good. Give it a listen. From the professional patient side as well, just give it a listen. Give it 5 stars. It's fantastic.
Do it for both. Download them both. Get the 5 stars in there. And if you do rate it 5 stars on Apple and give it a review as well, I'll give it a read at the end of the podcast in this little bit that I do at the end. I've mentioned it before. If you'd like to follow on social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook at Transplants Take on Sport Pod and Twitter at TTOS Pod. Thank you once again to my guest today, Ollie Crawley. I've been Lewis Daniels, and you've been listening to Transplants Take on Sport.